the Singapore Grand Prix is underway. Good reaction time for Lando Norris, who will hold the lead down to the 90 metres to turn number 1. Good start for Lewis Hamilton, but Max Verstappen edged him out. Off the road in the background goes Fernando Alonso, who now rejoins along with Charles Leclerc. Did they keep the right-hand side of the bollard? Otherwise, race control will have a look. Top 3, top 4 as they were. Upper place on the opening lap goes Nico Hülkenberg, who is running in 5th position, but Lando Norris got the launch that he needed. Can he keep it all the way across the line on lap 1 for the first time in Formula 1 as Piastri tries to dive to the inside, and he takes back that place that he lost off the line.
It was a good launch from Norris this time. Verstappen couldn't get the traction down. And look at Hamilton, has the better start of the top 3. It's not enough, but he tries to go racing with Verstappen momentarily on the outside. Cannot make it through. Russell and Piastri were very, very close as well, which gave Hülkenberg the door to come past the McLaren. And that was Hülkenberg briefly up into 5th place. We're going to get a nice shot of it now, looking back from George Russell starting 4th.
That's a nice angle, isn't it? You see the decision of the cars behind. Not as dusty on that inside line as maybe could be expected, and then look how dusty it is offline though, as that Aston uses the escape road, followed by the Ferrari, as we see Oscar get that place back down in the braking zone. So he'll be relieved to have cleared that Haas so early.
Albon's got an issue.
Yeah. We go on board with Alex Albon, who wasn't happy at the start of the Grand Prix. Dropped back from where he had a chance to contend for points, and now it looks like it's going to be another difficult day for the Thai driver.
And that's Alex Albon out of the Singapore Grand Prix. He is the first retirement.
Front wing damage, maybe front wing damage.
Well, it's been a dream Grand Prix so far for Lando Norris, but you're still pushing all the way here, and on an old tyre that's not in perfect condition. Maybe front wing damage was the call on the radio for the race leader. Here we go, key moment on board with Lando Norris. This could have changed the outcome of our winner today. This was back on lap 29. Lock up, and he brushes the barrier. That was so close to the end of his Grand Prix.
Wow. And it shows how quickly things can change. Looking like a just stroke it home dominant position, and then under rotation in the front axle in a corner where there's no runoff.
Right, let's inspect what Lando Norris has got at the front. High pressure pit stop for McLaren. They're trying to tick off the things that might deny them victory, because the pace of the car with the driver that you're looking at has been superb, and they'll be glad to be back into the Grand Prix. That is laid on the brakes. A position change for Max Verstappen. He lost 3rd on pit exit, but those are fresh hard tyres, and he moves past Charles Leclerc. So this is a high-pressure stop. They scrub off the speed. The team go to work, stabilising the car. The new Pirellis fitted say goodbye to those mediums. And now, can the McLaren man with a 2.2-second pit stop get out ahead of Lewis Hamilton? There goes one Mercedes. That's George Russell. Here comes the second one. It's going to be tight, but it's going to be track position for the 7-time world champion. And Oscar Piastri will have to go on the attack in the remaining laps of this race.
Will he defend the inside, forcing Piastri around the outside in the brakes?
He does go around the outside. That fresher rubber put to brilliant use, and Oscar Piastri clears the Mercedes at the first attempt. Alonso soaring left, soaring right, trying to keep the Ferrari behind, but this time Charles Leclerc is able to get ahead. Entertaining battle between these two, but Charles Leclerc moves on by.
Piastri's close. We've got DRS again, and he's really close. Look at this shot. Nibble of some curb, little slide at the rear. This is going to be a big chance.
Now this is where he got Lewis Hamilton a couple of laps ago. Will he be forced to go the long way round again? He is, but he pulls it off once more. Russell hung in there, but Piastri gets past the second Mercedes, up to 3rd position. This is on board with George Russell as Piastri went by.
I love the sparks on the face of the Hunter. And well, George, we don't see from the angle. He tried to hang in there. There wasn't much room for his front wing as they ran side by side through the apex. Beautifully judged overtake.
This is on board with Daniel Ricciardo heading through turn 10, and Esteban Ocon elbows his way by.
It's easy to forget. So does Magnussen. Whoa. Don't see too many coming through there, sneaking past. Norris, did he tap the wall? Was that a Russell moment? Remember, Norris did this on the final. Oh, my word.
What is going on? Here's Charles Leclerc, we're on board, we were, as the Ferrari driver goes through and up to 5th position. And he will now try and close down that 8-second gap as he gets past Lewis Hamilton. And Charles Leclerc has gone from 9th on the grid to 5th in the race.
So this is the replay. Will this be the moment where brushes out? Well, if that was the moment, it was the tiniest of touches.
Well, you think how lucky so many other drivers have been, because K-Mag is not the only driver to be brushing that wall. In fact, be a rare driver that hasn't brushed a wall around this circuit today.
Yeah, that angle actually, it was a bit more obvious, the contact.
Let's see, is this Russell brushing the wall? I'll tell you what, it's a sloppy one from George. Just exiting, trying to get that steering wheel straight, coax the rear tyres back, and literally just drives towards the barriers there on the outside.
And there is Kevin Magnussen, who finds himself being pushed out of the Grand Prix. Lando Norris can stop hearing about his starts and start enjoying his finishes for the 3rd time in Formula One. Lando Norris takes the checkered flag, a dominant drive complete. He has taken points out of Max Verstappen, who will come home in 2nd place. Qualifying crucial yesterday, but the margin comes down once again, and over the line comes Max Verstappen to claim 2nd position, and then a further 20 back. It will be this man, Oscar Piastri, who will find himself on the rostrum once again this year as he completes the final 2 corners. And Piastri will claim his 7th podium finish of the season across the line. 1-3 for McLaren.
Hello, mate. What's up? Yeah, lovely job, mate. Amazing car weekend. Thank you very much, everyone. One of many more. Let's keep pushing.
This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. Welcome in. This is season 6, episode number 37 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2024 Singapore Grand Prix race review show. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody, as always, tonight. It's good to see you, sir. How was your weekend, and how are you doing tonight?
It was a nice weekend. I had a lot of time to myself this weekend because my fiance was out having a real busy weekend herself. And, I think I just have to pretend that there's a Formula One race every day because it manages to get me out of bed earlier than I would normally get up for work. So I think I just need to have a little bit of a change in approach.
Yeah, I likewise. I almost wish that, if I had that same motivation, to, not just wake up, but get up and actually, go do things and be productive, might enjoy my days a little bit better. So you may be onto something right there. But anyway, you can find our show, as always, on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and, of course, on YouTube. At Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you're seeing and you like what you're hearing, you can do as the kids do and smash that subscribe button, or you can leave us a like, or if you're on your favorite podcasting app, a 5-star review will all help us get our content to you that much quicker. You can email the show, chat now at outlapf1.com. You can thank you so much to the people who do support us monetarily, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of what we call the hashtag OutlapF1 Nation, you can see our anchor page in our show notes. It's $1, $5. All goes into a couple things. One, either upgrading equipment we already have to make it work a little bit better, or two, buying some new equipment so we can go do cool stuff remote. recordings, that type of stuff. So if you'd like to help us to support us in that way, we would be most appreciative if you'd like to do that. Last thing, you can always find our code OUTLAP, that's OUTLAP, all one word, with the good folks at Manscaped, and you can get 20% off and free shipping at checkout if you are so inclined there. All right, with the particulars out of the way, we will start with the headlines of the day. Cody, I'll let you go first here. What you got?
Here, my headline of the day is McLaren dominance is ruining the sport. Just kidding. But really, so far, two out of Lando's 3 wins have been boring as hell. So he needs to, let Max catch up a little bit to keep it interesting.
He tried twice, almost. It's never easy with, being a Lando fan. But my headline of the day is this is the one where Lando actually came to terms with, and at least for now, exercised a lot of the demons that had hindered him throughout the course of his career. We got rid of the lap 1 demon. We got rid of he never wins from pole demon. We got, all of that stuff is now kind of moot. And we're watching a driver come into his own here. And I think the future is very, very, very bright. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I do think we're going to have some more dramatic Max Lando encounters. It may even be at the next race in Austin. It just wasn't here. But anyway, before we get into all of that, we're going to start. We will go back to the Saturday qualifying. So going out in P20 and in P19, the 2 kick Saubers of Zhao Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas. Will someone make the pain stop at kick Sauber? P18 saw Pierre Gasly. P17 was Lance Stroll. P16 was Daniel Ricciardo. P15 was Esteban Ocon. P14, Kevin Magnussen. P13, looks like the Baku was a one-hit wonder, Sergio Checo Perez. Yikes. P12, Franco Colapinto. P11 was Alex Albon. Williams almost making Q3 for the second straight race, but not quite there. P10 and P9 saw all Ferrari row. None of these guys set times. Carlos Sainz did not start the qualifying after crashing out, and Charles Leclerc did not finish the qualifying after having his lap time deleted. P8 was Yuki Tsunoda. P7 was Fernando Alonso. P6, Nico Hulkenberg. P5 was Oscar Piastri. P4 was George Russell. P3, Lewis Hamilton. And P2, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. And P1 with a 129.525, Lando Norris in the McLaren taking pole. Cody, big thoughts here in the qualifying.
There's a lot that went on. I thought that, regular programming has resumed with Sergio Perez not making it to Q3 and Max Verstappen being at least on the front row. That had me feeling a little bit more confident considering this track has not been kind to him in the past. So at least he's starting on the front row here. It was not particularly close to Lando. He's off by about 2/10 in Q3. And as we'll see, that pace for McLaren was really quite a bit ahead of the Red Bull. Some other things that happened. Carlos Sainz had an off in qualifying. It was pretty good damage to the car. And it was, I don't know if I would go so far to say it was clumsy, but he was preparing to go onto his hot lap, and maybe the tires weren't completely up to temperature, but heading into the hot lap, he just lost control of the car, and in trying to correct it, went into the wall, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, I mean, the Q3 actually turned out to be a one-shot go for pretty much everybody other than, I think, Oscar Piastri and Nico Hulkenberg were the two that had set lap times. Max Verstappen thought he did. It would have been actually better than his second run. I think it was a 129.6, but that lap time ended up getting deleted because of Carlos Sainz's double wave yellow flags, which kills pretty much all the lap time. So regardless of whether or not you go through it, now we have our answer. We kind of talked about this with Lando and Baku, and, should he have slowed down for the yellow flags? It would not have mattered. Once they put that out there, that pretty much kills the lap time. So Max's first run gets deleted. Everybody's first run basically is null and void. So that entire set of tires goes away. It turns into basically a one-lap free-for-all pretty much. And, Max, I thought, did really, really well to rally. It didn't look like on Friday that the Red Bulls were going to solve Singapore. They were any closer to solving Singapore. But as of FP3, at least on the Max side of the garage, it looked like he got it together. And I thought it was a hell of a qualifying lap, actually, that he did. Given the fact that the car probably didn't feel all that great to him, you couldn't imagine that it did. But what else can you say? Lando was, I think, man on a mission all weekend from basically FP1. That car looked quick. He looked hooked up. And no surprise here that, it looked like he was the odds-on favorite for pole, and he converts it 129.525. I'm a little happy with that lap time because someone actually sort of predicted that. Got pretty close. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. You talked a little bit about Carlos Sainz. It just looked like probably a tire temp thing where he was starting his flying lap and dropped it. And the damage, while superficial, probably looked a lot worse than it was. So that was kind of, that was the Ferrari thing. And then, Charles Leclerc going over the white line in turn 3 on his flying attempt meant that his lap time ultimately gets deleted. So he had been, in the practices, at least, right on Lando's tail. So it was looking like we were going to have Lando v. Charles, and maybe with Max in the mix. The potential was there to have some real drama, but that pretty much, with the lack of overtaking that we're going to talk about in just a little bit, that pretty much killed the Ferrari chances for a great result, at least at that point. But Sergio Perez P13. I don't know, maybe that's just where the car is, and maybe Max is that freaking good, to overcome it. So anyway, I think that's probably any other big thoughts on the qualifying before we kind of move into the race.
Just that Franco Colapinto qualified only in Q2, only 7 1,000ths of a second off of Alex Albon. So continuing to impress, being thrown into the Williams here mid-season, only on his third race now, and he is holding with Albon, which is very impressive.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a theme for both Williams drivers, is they're both kind of pushing the limits of it. There was one point at which I think Alex Albon ended up being P1 in Q1, with the amount of track evolution and all that. But it just goes to show it, despite there being a clear now sort of pecking order at a track like this, it's still pretty close in terms of overall kind of relative pace. One positive note I would note, I thought the Mercedes came to play here in qualifying after not looking all that great on the Friday. So both Russell, who probably feels a little bit disappointed because he was P2 and FP3, only manages to get P4. But Lewis Hamilton, I thought, that's probably the most perky I've heard Lewis Hamilton after a qualifying session in a long time. So if that is somehow a harbinger of anything to come, we know we're going to Coda. Lewis Hamilton loves Circuit of the Americas. It was kind of the place that he kind of built for a while and resided on the top step of the podium. So maybe that is something good to watch for moving forward if that form and a strong finish to his Mercedes career is on the cards. All right, so we will hop into the race itself, and we shall start with the back markers. And the back markers see Alex Albon and Kevin Magnussen being the two DNFs on the day. Albon suffering an engine failure on lap 15, and Kevin Magnussen, who had actually a puncture, and then I think the call was made to not even bother to send him back out because he probably killed some of his suspension after hitting the wall or brushing the wall, and when it didn't really hit it. P18, Daniel Ricciardo, in what is more than likely going to be his final F1 race, at least for this season. Whether or not he will ever get another F1 race is definitely a question mark at this point, but he comes home in P18. P17, Pierre Gasly. P16 was Valtteri Bottas. P15 was Zhao Guanyu, so at least the kick salvers were not bumping up the field this time. That's, I guess, progress. if you want to take it that way. P14 was Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, and P13 was Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. So, Cody, big thoughts here on the back markers.
It is a little disappointing that Daniel Ricciardo, wasn't in really any position in this race to score points on what could be his last race in Formula One. The rumors have really been ramping up over this last weekend, especially this weekend, that this could be his last race in Formula One, at least for this season in the RB. A lot of talk that Liam Lawson could be taking that seat for the rest of the season. And, Daniel Ricciardo is obviously a very, very popular personality in Formula One. So it will be a shame to see him go. It does appear that he wanted to go out with some sort of a bang because I don't know if it was his decision or the team's decision, but I'm suspecting that he had some voice in this, that he did pit at the end of the race for soft tires so that he could go for it, and ended up taking the fastest lap, which ends up being fairly consequential because he took the fastest lap away from Lando Norris. And we're getting to that point where every point in that battle between Lando and Max could count. So him taking that off of Lando is a pretty big deal. But it's good that at least he got that. I personally would hope that he would be finishing out the season, because it does feel a little dissatisfying for someone who's so popular in the sport to just kind of be gone 2/3 of the way through the season. But if that ends up being the case, he will be very well remembered.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely no doubt. You don't have, I think, the modern resurgence of Formula One, or you don't have certainly the American surgence of Formula One without a guy like Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, his personality is electric. He is funny. He understands U.S. culture probably better than 3/4 of the people in that paddock do. And it just vibes. And you can't help but like a guy like that. You just really can't. That said, I think he had some better aspirations on a result for this weekend. It looked like on the Friday looked like the V-carbs had actually come to play pretty much. So they looked like in contention. But, unfortunately, once qualifying hit, I think everybody kind of turned up the wick and kind of brought everybody back into the normal reality of kind of where they are. So it wasn't the greatest of results. He does get that fastest lap. That is significant in the overall. If you're saying the Drivers' Championship is still on at this point, and we'll look at the points and we'll evaluate all that in a little bit, that is a data point, and that is a big deal that comes off of Lando's tally there. So, but that is. It wasn't just Danny Rick that went for that. Kevin Magnussen had gone for the fastest lap and actually had gotten it, and then had the lap time deleted, so it went back to Lando. So whether or not Lando was ever going to keep that fastest lap point, I don't know. But this is just kind of how it played out. That is how that rule works. So fair play as far as I'm concerned. But if this is Danny's last race, the thing that annoys me about how this is going to go down when we get to awards, we'll talk about some of this too. I just wish that they would be straight with him. I think he's earned that. I think he's a made enough guy to, if this really was his swan song, it should have been with the full on, last parade and the last driver's parade and the honor guard and all that other stuff. His team kind of tried to do one after the race, and they kind of did a makeshift one. But it still should have had a lot more pomp and circumstance surrounding it. Now, as of 10:12 p.m. on Sunday, it has not yet been announced. And of course, in true Outlap F1 podcast fashion, the news is going to break as I'm posting the review episode. So just stand by for that one. I know that it's coming. But it seems like it's all but confirmed. There was a Chris Medlin interview with Christian Horner after the race, and he all but said Danny wanted to go out with a bang, and he caught himself kind of almost mid-thought and didn't quite say it. So, it looks like this is probably going to be one of the worst kept secrets in Formula One. from a tactical standpoint, Vicar, believe it or not, actually do need the points. Haas are catching up to them quickly, as we will talk about. So, yeah, unfortunately, if Danny Rick's not scoring, it might just be time, and that catches up to everybody at some point. But I wish that Danny would have had a much more respectful send off than just this is it. But anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to awards. But all right, we'll move into the midfield. And P12 saw Danny Rick's teammate Yuki Tsunoda come home there. P11 just outside of the points, pestering Sergio Perez all the way to the end. That was Franco Colapinto in the Williams, and boy, what a move at the beginning of this race for him. P10. He did manage to get in the points at least. Sergio Checo Perez does get 1 point on the board for Red Bull there. P9, Nico Hulkenberg, who I thought was definitely punching above their weight after qualifying sixth. Comes home in P9, 2 big points for Haas there. P8, Fernando Alonso can still wheel it around Singapore. That's proven out here, dragging that Aston Martin because his teammate, not anywhere near the points, but there's Fernando Alonso, 4 big points on the board for him. P7 was Carlos Sainz, bit of a recovery after the qualifying crash. P6, soft tire starter, and it looked like early pitter Lewis Hamilton. That didn't really work out for him. He falls from 3rd to 6th on the day here. P5, best probably recovery driver of the day. That was Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, coming up from 9th to finish 5th. P4 was George Russell. And okay, so that's our midfield. And Cody, big thoughts here.
It cracked me up after the first lap of the race, how 1st through 7th, I believe, had no change of position. They showed this on the broadcast, how they show the change of positions from the first lap. It's nothing. You get down to Franco Colapinto, and it's +4. Which I thought was very impressive. And, they didn't really show what happened immediately. So you're wondering, what's going on? He made some pretty daring moves there on the first lap, so much so that it actually frustrated Alex Albon, who was getting on the radio and saying that, Colapinto dive bombed me, and what's he doing? But frankly, that's what you're supposed to do. Singapore is not known as being a track where it is easy to pass. First lap is probably the best time you're going to get to make up some good positions, and that's what he went for. And it's a little disappointing that he ended up not getting any points out of it, but he did really have a pretty strong day. So I think 11th is perfectly respectable.
Yeah, if not for Alex Albon's engine kind of giving out in the early runs of this race, it would have been interesting to see where Williams ultimately could have finished. But I thought Franco Colapinto, again, for a guy who's in his 3rd race on 3 tracks that you couldn't have picked 3 more different and more challenging one-off circuits, Monza, Baku, Singapore. That's a bit of a gauntlet to get your feet wet into Formula One, and the guy's just doing the job. Logan Sargent notwithstanding, that second Williams is now viable, and that's important for him and for his team. Now, if he's going to remain in Formula One, it's not going to be with Williams at least next season, because we know it's going to be Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon in the actual Williams seat. There is the seat at Sauber. I don't know if Franco Colapinto wants to go there, but if you'd rather be an F1 than be a reserve, that's at least a chance to kind of hone your craft a little bit and be kind of, if you're just good enough to be noticed, and hey, if you get kick Sauber a point, it's 1 more than they've gotten this entire season. So, hey, the arrow can only be up there, but this guy's doing, I think, a great job of just coming in and, not putting a foot wrong. I mean, other than the crash in Baku, but he made up for that because he scored points that weekend. So I thought, I continue to see good things from the Williams camp. I thought that latest set of upgrades that they brought is working. So it'll be interesting to see, can they, how well they're going to score in some other places, because there's other tracks that are going to suit them. I can think of Las Vegas. That long straightaway is going to definitely play into the Williams hands a little bit. So should be good things on tap for them. Any other thoughts here in the midfield?
Oh, let's see here. Fernando Alonso and Nico Hülkenberg continuing to extract the very most out of their cars and tie up some of those last points paying positions. I think Hülkenberg is mostly responsible at this point for the gap closing between Haas and RB. So very good to see that that's heating up. Lewis Hamilton's strategy seemed to be a little odd. I think he was the furthest guy up. There wasn't a whole lot of people in like the front half of the field that were starting on the soft. I guess he wanted to, have the best shot that he could at having a run at Max and Lando. And he ended up having a pretty good run at Max. Max closed the door, and that was pretty much the end of that. He didn't sound like he was particularly happy with the performance of the car this weekend. It seems to be a common thing with Hamilton lately. But yeah, a little too bad that he ended up dropping back, but still ended up, getting a pretty good haul of points for Mercedes, finishing about where they're at right now.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer he could have really eked out on the soft tire. He did manage to go 17 laps, which, at the beginning of the race when the car is full of fuel, I thought that was, given the other people who started on soft tires, bailing on it after like 10 or 12, I thought Lewis did the best job that he could. And at the time, I thought it made sense. The medium runners just went like 33, 34 laps. So, that's basically what kind of killed it. It wasn't, I don't think the soft tire itself wasn't the bad call or the timing of the pit stop. It was the fact that everybody else just got that much more life out of it. But still managed to come home sixth place. That's not bad, all things considered. This would have been a track that I did not think was going to be a Mercedes strong suit, and they showed well in FP3 and qualifying and, managed to put a decent race together. So, him along with George Russell, I thought that's probably right where I would want them to be. Like, that's probably the max that they were going to get out of this weekend, especially with Charles Leclerc having to recover from P9 to P5. You could obviously tell his pace was strong. Just couldn't really, do a whole lot of overtaking, but I thought he was just kind of held up by traffic, and he just really couldn't, use his overall pace. I wish we could have seen, had it been Lando Charles at the front of the grid, I think this race could have had a bit more drama in it, for sure. Okay, so our podium turns out to be the two McLarens and a Red Bull. I think that used to be a name of a TV show. Two guys, a girl, and a pizza place. Two McLarens and a Red Bull in the cool-down room. P3 saw Oscar Piastri. P2, Max Verstappen. And P1, the dude on a mission ended up converting it. Not entirely drama-free, but for the most part drama-free. Lando Norris in the McLaren, career win number 3 for him. And if you got the two guys and a girl reference, you'll now know how old I really am. All right. Cody, thoughts here in the podium?
I thought that the first lap had the makings to be really juicy because you had Max and Lando on the front row. You had Lewis Hamilton just behind on the softs. And we know that, he's got history with Max and he's hungry, trying to, get everything that he can out of his last year in Mercedes. So I was predicting before the race that it was going to get spicy, especially between Max and Lando. And it just didn't really pan out that way. Going into that first turn, like I said before, Lewis made a little bit of a run on Max. Max shut the door. Lando had a really great start, much better than Max. He did what he needed to do. He got out in front. And that was pretty much it, barring like the little points of drama, which I'll let you talk about. But really, it ended up being a pretty boring race at the front because Lando just kept opening that gap further and further. Max kept opening the gap further and further on the people behind him. So they were kind of out on their own, and everything went according to plan with the pit stops and the strategy. So it pretty much looked like at least the top 2 spots was going to be sealed in pretty early on. For what it's worth, Oscar Piastri had himself a really good race. Started from 5th. He ended up having, after, I forget what round the pit stops, but near the end, he did end up having to overtake both Mercedes drivers on track in order to get that podium. So pretty good drive from him.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Oscar Piastri, he's going to get a reputation for being the king of these outside moves because, here's another couple of moves to the outside on a track that is very hard to overtake. He did not have the greatest of launches, actually, Piastri. Gets overtaken by Hulkenberg, and then by the end, in the middle of lap 1, actually takes the position back, which ended up being a big deal because if he would have gotten held up by Hulkenberg for 3-4 laps, who knows, how the strategy could have possibly played out. But I think they ran him long, and then after both Mercedes had pitted, they tried to get him in as clean of air as they could. At one point, I think he was up to P2. I think he was still like 5 or 6 seconds behind Lando there. But that's not really the type of clean air that he really could have wanted to try to go out and extend. He eventually does come in. He does drop back behind Hamilton and Russell, quickly gets by Hamilton, few laps to get up to Russell, and then basically the same move on the outside, gets him up to P3. At that point, I think he was 18, 19 seconds behind Max. Tried to give it a go for a couple laps. It didn't look like it was going to be there. So I think they didn't call him off, but I think he kind of called it off and just said, hey, I'm just going to try to get to the end here. It's a hot, long race. In terms of Max Verstappen, he had not the greatest of launches, but it wasn't enough to where it was a problem to get Lewis on him, because once he shut the door on Lewis, that was pretty much it. And from all the feedback we'd heard after qualifying and what they thought could happen during the race, I think once they kind of realized, well, we couldn't get Lando on the first lap, he just settled in, went to work, did the rhythm thing, and got the car home. And as great as Lando was, he only picks up 7 points on Max, because the two best races for Lando this season have been actually all 3 wins have had Max right there Max P2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, he's not, when Lando wins, it's not like he's gaining mega ground, but it is what he needed to do. But Lando did not he had a great drive. Wasn't a perfect drive. He had 2 moments, one of which actually made Max in the cool down room go, whoa, where he starts to lock up. He's going into turn 14. And all of a sudden I'm watching this out of the corner of my eye on the onboard. And I'm going, whoa, 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 whoa. Got it stopped. Got it rotated enough. He clipped the wing ever so slightly against the Tech Pro there. And then he gets on the radio like, check the wing. And I'm watching his sector times, and I'm like, well, they're fine. He's building back up. I think he's okay. They boxed him right after that to get him off of that tire. They checked the wing out. There was no problem. He could have maybe even changed the wing and maybe even come out still in front. He was that far ahead at the time. And the only really drama part of the race was, could they potentially have pitted him a second time to put a set of softs on to go and retake that fastest lap after K-Mag tried it, got the lap time deleted, and then when Danny Rick tries it at the end, and then obviously he succeeded in doing it. So, it to me, as a fan of his, this is a race that expelled a lot of the demons. We don't have to talk about the lap 1 stuff anymore. We don't have to talk about the start. We don't have to talk about the launches, at least for a couple of weeks. And, it's no longer he can't win from pole. So he's managed to do that at least a couple times. Do I think there is more Max Lando drama in store? Certainly possible, especially if the Red Bull updates that they want to bring to Austin, do actually push them a little bit back forward and back into the fight. There's no reason to think that this isn't going to be a fight, because as this championship gets tighter, Max will start to pull more and more out of it to try to keep on to what he's got here. So, but I think overall, if you're a McLaren fan like me, it was a very, very good day. And they extend their constructor lead in that championship as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other thoughts on anybody else in the race before we kind of call it? It's not the most dramatic race.
Yeah, I don't know about anybody else in the race. I was actually having a little bit of a hard time staying awake at certain parts of it. I did pip up a little bit when Lando had his close calls. He had the close call that you described. He had another one where he brushed the wall in, I believe, the same spot and same turn that he brushed the wall in the race last year, and where George Russell ended up crashing and retiring from the podium. So, you kind of wonder what might have been had either one of those incidents gone worse. But in retrospect, pretty minor faults. He managed to save it and ended up with a very strong finish, almost 21 seconds out in front of Max.
Yep, built the gap from the beginning and just kind of mitigated that basically all the way to the end when he wasn't almost crashing the car. But anyway, again, I think this was, other than maybe the Zandvoort one, I think this was his best overall weekend, because from jump he was on it. And it's also a testament to the McLaren high downforce package. We've, the big controversy going into this weekend was the low downforce package. Well, this was the exact opposite of that. The high downforce package, it's a game changer. And whatever they got cooking in that car right now definitely helps both Piastri and Norris to go really well around these types of circuits. So, if it can come back for at least one more, I would be a fan of that. But we shall see. All right, I guess we will leave the race here. So we will take a quick break. We will re-rack. We'll come back. We will look at what this did to that Drivers' Championship, what it did to the Constructors' Championship, and then we will open it up to your takes on what you saw this weekend, the fan email segment. We've got our regulars here. We'll hand out some awards. I surprisingly have a lot I want to throw into the rubbish bin. And then we'll talk a little bit about predictions. We've also done something that I don't think we've ever done before. Again, but, we'll get into all that. And just Cody's groaning. Maybe that's a harbinger. Come on back. We'll get into all that in just a little bit. You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back in. This is Season 6, Episode 37 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2024 Singapore Grand Prix review show. And you've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just wrapped up discussion of said Singapore Grand Prix. And now we're going to take a look at what this race did to the championship. Did it get any tighter here? So, Cody, as is tradition, if you take the drivers, I will chime in with the team standings.
All right. So Max Verstappen still in first place. We'll continue to hold on to that for at least another race or two if things go horribly awry. But yeah, still out in front, 331 points now. However, Lando Norris continues to chip away at that lead. He takes as many points as he can for position, at least, from this race weekend. He's in second with 279 points. Charles Leclerc making a pretty good recovery drive this time out. He is in third place with 245 points, while Oscar Piastri gains on Leclerc a little bit from this outing. Oscar is in fourth with 237 points. Carlos Sainz in fifth place in the other Ferrari with 190 points. Lewis Hamilton in sixth, first of the two Mercedes at 174. And right behind him, George Russell in the other Mercedes at 155 points. Sergio Perez scoring only 1 point this time out. He is in 8th place at 144 points. Fernando Alonso and Nico Hulkenberg, 9th and 10th, doing what they do best, both coming out of this weekend with points. Fernando Alonso in 9th with 62, and Nico Hulkenberg in 10th with 24 points.
Yeah, Hulkenberg taking the 10th spot on countback from Lance Stroll, who is usually our 10th place person when we do this read. But in terms of the constructors, McLaren Mercedes remain now in P1 in the constructors. They are up to 516 points. They open up the gap on Red Bull Racing powertrains. They check in with 475 points, mainly due to Max Verstappen's great effort today. P3 is Ferrari. They check in with 441 points. P4, this is where they're going to finish. That's Mercedes, but they are up to 329 points on the season. P5, Aston Martin. They are up to 86 points. P6 is your VCARB team. They remain on 34 points. P7 is Haas. They are up to 31 points. So that P6 battle, certainly not done by any stretch. P7, we just said that was Haas on 31. P8 is Williams. They remain on 16. P9 is Alpine. They remain on 13. So the P8, the P6 battle, still a lot to play for these teams for the rest of this season. And in P10, we keep having to say this, Kick Sauber Ferrari, 0 points on the season. Ouch. All right. So you've heard our takes on the Singapore Grand Prix weekend. We're now going to open it up to your takes on what you saw this weekend. It's our favorite segment, the Fan Email segment. And we've got our normal regulars in here. Cody, it's your time to shine. And because she got it in a couple minutes in front of Dave, we're going to start with Rachel Fleming. Cody, what she got?
All right. Our first fan email comes from Rachel Fleming. Thank you, Rachel. And she says, what a difference 12 months makes. This time last year, this was the only race that Red Bull couldn't conquer. These days, getting second from Max is now seen as an overachievement. Isn't it boring watching Norris winning by 24 seconds? Okay, it wasn't a great race by any means, but there were moments. Brilliant weekend from Lando. He was in a different class from everyone else this weekend. Sometimes F1 can find good drivers, not by the usual means. I am getting Kobayashi vibes with Colapinto. He could become a bit of a cult favorite for the rest of the season and worry Bottas greatly for the last remaining seat for 2025. She goes on to say, it seems very harsh to drop Danny Rick after this race, which is not confirmed quite yet, especially since there were rumors that he might even get the Red Bull seat during the summer. But maybe his time was up in the sport. After all, coming last isn't a great look, but going for the fastest lap to help Red Bull is one last hurrah. Oh, I did listen to Joe's radio this race. Credit to him. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear any whinging, but maybe they didn't broadcast it. Plus, Sauber didn't come last. I'm pretty sure they would have broadcast it. They broadcast pretty much everything that comes over the radio. Now, 3 weeks. Is it 3 weeks? I thought it was 4 weeks. Either way, she says, now 3 weeks until Coda. Have a brilliant time if you guys are going. Yep. And then she goes on to say, my mistake, 4 weeks. I should just read ahead a little bit, shouldn't I? I am sure Andy will have a great time at Coda. I am sad to say I will not be joining him this year. Something about having to sock that money away for my upcoming wedding. But I wish you a great time at the race. I'm sure I will see many pictures, and we'll still be doing the episode with you. So,
oh yeah, I mean you'll find me in the hotel room probably that Sunday night, and we'll be recapping all of it. But I more than understand. You're doing a once in a lifetime thing, and you're doing it in a once in a lifetime location. So, totally understand. And while I will miss you, it is for a greater good that you're doing. So So
Hopefully that
nothing
feed
but
opens
congrats.
next year.
Yeah, well, that's the best thing is, those tickets still come back next year, and they keep calling me because they know that I'm loyal. So let's put it that way. So anyway, I'm sure we will find a way to get back as a team to an F1 race in the not too distant future as well. But yeah, Rachel, to your point about the 12 months, I mean, talk about just uncanny and unreal. The Red Bull superpower and the fact that it was so dominant. When you look at the results, and it's Red Bull, Red Bull, Red Bull, Red Bull, Ferrari, and it was here. And I came into this weekend thinking, well, this could really be where, if Lando did what he did and he went out and did it, could it have been really championship back on? It's still on, but it's not as good as it could have been because Max did. Like, if Max wins the championship, and he more than likely is going to win the Drivers' Championship this year, let's just be really honest about that, it's going to be drives like this that get him over the line in a car that hasn't necessarily been the best. Drives like, his Zandvoort drives here, where Lando was just on it, but he's limiting the damage. That's what you have to do when, life isn't perfect for you. And now they get the break to bring those updates that they are very high on to Austin. We're going to see if they can correlate them. They're only going to have one practice. It's a sprint weekend, so it's all compressed and a lot of pressure. And we're going to see, kind of if they are able to bring the fight back a little bit to the McLarens, in terms of overall pace. Because if that's the case, then the McLarens have a bigger headache on their hands. Because, again, as we've been saying throughout this entire thing, there's a lot of success that Lando has to have in order, with Max not having it, in order to get there. And a race like this, I think, really makes it that much harder. So for Lando to get there math-wise. So, I mean, full credit to Max. Great drive from him today.
Yeah, pretty much at this point, if Lando is going to win the championship, he's going to have to pry it from Max's, I don't want to say cold, dead hands, but cold, dead-like grip. I don't know. Don't want to curse him. But anyway, yeah, he's going to have to really, really fight tooth and nail for it. As far as the comment about that Bottas should be worried about that last seat, the rumor mill has turned out to be true on several things lately. I'm thinking that it will probably end up being true for Danny Rick losing his seat. But the rumor mill has made it seem that Bottas's seat there will be confirmed in the not too distant future. We'll have to see. In terms of age, Colapinto has the advantage, and he has really shown very good here in the few races that we've seen him. But we do have to remember, too, that Bottas was a very successful driver at Mercedes. He's got, 10 wins? Could beat Lewis Hamilton on his day. He's got a lot of experience, and now he's got a lot of experience both at, the top of the field and the bottom of the field. And he's really not in a position right now where he can really show what he's got. He even made a comment recently in an interview that he feels like he's driving better now than he has in a long time, but that it just doesn't show because, he's driving a shitbox. So I think that Bottas is definitely the safer way to go for that team that is currently floundering. He can continue to help them develop the car, perhaps even into the beginning of the new set of regulations. I think, the pairing between him and Hulkenberg would actually be really good. So it is kind of disappointing that it looks like Colapinto is going to, show some really great stuff here for the last third of this season, only to end up without a seat on the grid next season. But he's doing everything he needs to do right now to secure himself a future seat, even if it isn't for next year. He will definitely have a development driver role, be a reserve driver, and I'm sure with what he's doing right now, if he continues to do this for the rest of the season, he will be very high up on the list should a seat become available.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it pretty much perfectly. The Franco Calapinto situation is complicated because of Franco Calapinto's effort and the fact that he's making it, a complicated situation, and that's a good thing for him. Uh, what probably ends up happening. I don't. It's so hard to speculate because with Bonato being there, you might want to have one young guy and one more experienced guy to try to build that team. Or are you just looking to bridge until Audi comes in 26 and then you kind of reset and re-go anyway? It's hard to tell. With him just coming on, we don't really know what the vision is. That's part of the problem is we never really knew what the vision was. I am compelled by your Bottas points. I mean, I think you're probably right. I think he probably is a better driver at this stage in his career than he was even when he was winning at Mercedes, simply because he's had to learn how to wring things out of a car. It's the same thing that Fernando Alonso learned when McLaren was doing not all that great. He learned how to wring tenths and 2/10 out of a car that almost didn't have anything to give. But yeah, and I think that benefits him later, and it's going to benefit him later when he gets, if the 26 regs come in and Adrian Newey does what he does and Fernando Alonso's back at the front and fighting again, all of that experience is going to benefit him, and that's going to be a really cool thing to watch. But yeah, I got a funny feeling he's going to go back to Williams. He's probably going to go back to F2. They're going to try to just kind of hone that talent. If he has just a bang up F2 season next year, he can be the Williams driver and do the sim work and that type of stuff. I think he's the first time a seat opens up, whether that's Carlos Sainz doing his 2 years at Williams and then trying to move back up the grid, or whether that's Albon, for whatever reason, if that doesn't continue to work out, I think Calapinto's the easy choice to go back in, and I think he'll be the number one prospect on a lot of minds, in the same way that Lawson is now. Lawson did the same thing where he was showing great and then had to take a reserve role. It's when you only got 20 seats, this is what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it is what happens, and it may come back to Liam very soon here. So hopefully it comes back around to Franco not too far in the future.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you, Rachel, for your email. Our next one comes in from Dave Doherty. Thank you, Dave. He says, "Hi, team. I know how challenging this track is in the F1 game. It's very punishing. But McLaren are the real deal on being the best team, and Lando has earned the P1, and Oscar definitely deserves to be in the McLaren. But what are your thoughts on RB on the V-carb? I think that's what it is. There we go. On the RB V-carb on the team orders, and where does this leave Ricardo? I do understand that this is his last race. Again, not official quite yet. Probably will be sometime tomorrow after the episode is posted.
As I'm posting it, as I'm editing, I guarantee you.
Any thoughts on where the situation is with RB on driver number 2? To your first point, it's kind of ironic. I am a super F1 fan, and I am a very big, long-time avid video gamer. Yet, I've never played a Formula One game. I played a lot of driving sims. Love me some. Man, I am drawing a big fat blank here right now. Forza. That's what I was trying to think of.
Forza.
I've gone through a lot of these tracks on Forza that don't have Singapore in that one, though, so I haven't actually done this one. But seeing what the drivers are doing on TV, where they are brushing the wall, coming just inch perfect during practice, qualifying, and even during the race, as we saw with a lot of guys just barely brushing the wall today. I do believe that it is one of the tougher tracks that they have to do. And on top of that, they got to do it in the heat and the humidity. You see these guys take off their helmets after the race, and they're sweaty and red in the face, and having to duck. In the case of Lewis and George today, I think they actually had to duck out of part of their interviews because they needed to recover. So
they went into the ice bath. They literally went into the cold room and said, "We don't want to do the interviews," and they were excused from that.
Yep. So not only is the track difficult, but the conditions are difficult, and it just goes to show that these guys are the best at what they do. Um, as far as the RB VCarb team orders bit goes, I'm not 100% sure what you are referring to. I would think maybe it's, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Andy, if you know more about it, but maybe he's talking about that Ricardo came in for the fastest lap, and that there's some talk that maybe that had to do with Red Bull pulling some strings.
Correct.
Okay.
There was, if you listen to any of Zach Brown's post race, he kind of said he was going to raise some questions about it, and I think he has done so. I don't think there's a smoking gun. I didn't hear any sort of funny radio transmission. It wasn't like
right.
Christian Horner got on the Universal Radio squawk box and said, execute Order 69 there, Daniel, or something like that. That's not what happened. I mean, it's a strategy that happens, and look, I mean, Daniel Ricciardo does know who signs his paycheck, and for as poorly as I believe he is being treated, he's going to go down doing what he's always done, and that's be a great team guy. Wherever he's been, when he was at Renault, he was a great team guy. When he was with McLaren, he was a great team guy. I never doubted that for a second. He's a guy of character, and if he gets asked to do something, he goes out and he does it because it's for the benefit of somebody. And he understood that. So, I know Zach Brown has mentioned it a couple times that it's kind of an odd thing when you have a junior team that you could potentially do that type of influence. I think he even admits he's probably pulling at straws. And he literally said in the same interview, well, I'm going to go ask the question. I don't think I'm going to get anywhere, but I'll at least, pose the question. So I don't think we're going to have a gate over this single point call. And I don't really know that I want to. It's part of Formula One. And they could change the rule that says if you're not in the top 10 and you get the fastest lap, you don't get anything. Or it goes back to the guy in the top 10 who had it. In fact, I was in my group chat after the race today, and we were debating that. And I'm like, no. It means nobody gets it. And, had to kind of set some folks straight about that earlier because, there was a bit of confusion. Like they thought that maybe it would go back to Lando somehow. And I'm like, no, unfortunately it doesn't go that way. It goes here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My gut wants to believe that Danny Rick went out there and wanted to do the fastest lap because he knows that this could be his last race and he just wanted to go out with some kind of a bang. That's what my heart wants to believe. If I also believe wholeheartedly that, Horner could have gone to RB, knowing that Red Bull owns the team, and told them, hey, if there's ever a situation here where you're taking points off of McLaren, do it. I totally believe that could happen too. And it does kind of get into those, murky waters of the fact that Red Bull does own two teams and that there is room for them to leverage that in these types of situations. We've talked about it before when things like this have happened. Like, should one entity be able to own more than one team? I mean, there's nothing in the rules that prohibits it right now. So,
as we're going to talk about, the rules tell you what you can't do. They don't necessarily tell you what you can.
Yep. So, yeah, it's a gray area. If it did happen, it happened, and if it becomes more egregious in the future, then Formula One might have to step in and make some changes to I don't really know what they could do to stop this from happening other than preventing somebody from owning more than one team, in which case that would pretty much force the sale of the team.
Yeah, it would force some sort of a spin-off, but then who would buy it?
Andretti, somebody would buy it.
Well, somebody would buy it. I mean, I'm sure there are willing takers, and I'm sure it's going to get a ridiculous valuation. That I'm sure of at this point. But I mean, as of right now, even if it is some, and again, I heard nothing over any sort of team communication or anything like that. I doubt there's Christian Horner on the pit wall, flashing the magic skull and crossbones sign, to the V-carb guys down the road to tell them to go do that. But, and I'm sure Lauren Meckies, who's running the V-carb team, knows what the score is and understands situations. And, I would like, and I probably will at some point, go back and review Danny Rick's onboard from those last couple laps just to see if there was. But, again, because I've not heard of anything like that, I believe this is on the level. I think that's just what you do sometimes when, you want to go down, you want to have a track record for a year. Fernando Alonso did the same thing in Monza a couple years ago, when he was with McLaren in the Honda era. And that was just to kind of do the same thing. Like he was having a really crappy race. And he was never going to score a point. So he just ducked in, put on a set of soft tires and set the fastest lap so that, when you look at the race results at the end of the day, his name is somewhere. That's probably what happened here.
It is what I want to believe. Thank you, Dave, for your email. Our last one comes in from the Formula. Thank you, Mr. Formula. And he says, while I'm very happy for Lando, McLaren, and their respective championship pursuits, I'm even more happy to have found the cure to my recent troubles falling asleep at night. Moving forward, I'm simply going to play the 2024 Singapore Grand Prix by my bedside on my laptop. The incoming quality of sleep will be glorious. As stated before, I do tend to agree with you. I was dozing off a little bit during the race. Is definitely not the most exciting race that we've had this season, not by any means. Probably, in my opinion at least, only Monaco was more boring. But, Andy was telling me before that we're kind of spoiled right now, kind of like we were back during the 2021 season where we've had so much excitement. And this season, just like 2021, we didn't even really expect to have this excitement. 2021, we were coming off of extreme Mercedes dominance, with the fastest car and one of the most dominant cars that they've ever made. And then, this season we're coming off of the, historic dominance that Max and Red Bull had last season. And from the first 5 races of this season, looked like was going to be the name of the game this year. So the fact that this is happening at least most races is kind of a blessing. So I'm willing to suck up a boring race here and there. But yeah, this one would definitely make for some good sleep aid.
Formula One ASMR.
Something tells me that even the turbo engines would not make for good ASMR. It'd be better than like the V10s, but
well, yeah. I mean, it's not going to scream you awake, but anyway, I get the point. Was this one was not a banger by any stretch. Totally agree with that. But as I was telling Cody earlier before we started recording, we have been blessed, and sometimes you feel that you get addicted to crack. You get addicted to crack because we've had a lot of absolute crack races. I not being facetious here, I've watched Azerbaijan like 3 different times back because that battle was just amazing and it was just kind of fun to watch. So, and I just happened to keep finding it. So, when it's on, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll watch this again. But yeah, I mean, look, Singapore, they have tried. It's not like they have not tried to make this thing more raceable. They're moving in the right way. It's a very twisty street track. It's brutal conditions, which you can't do anything about. And I think it's just one of those races where, the fun of this one might just be the qualifying session. And that's kind of how you have to almost go into it with that type of mentality. That said, maybe you get one of those races where, somebody's tires just dies at the end and you see an odd result, but that didn't happen here today. Yeah, I guess we'll try Singapore ASMR moving forward.
Sounds good to me. Thank you guys very much for your emails.
Yep. Yeah, as always, thank you, especially to these 3 who contribute pretty much just about every episode. So thank you very much for the feedback and for the interaction. We enjoy it tremendously. I enjoy it tremendously, especially on Twitter. It's good to know that, good, educated, informed F1 fans actually do see my tweets every now and again. All right, so we will move into our awards. And since I have a lot in the rubbish bin, I'm going to let Cody go first, but I think we have some agreement on at least one of these. Cody, what you got?
Yep, I'm pretty much going to touch on something that I see is here in your rubbish pile. And my rubbish award is going to go to the FIA because, goddamn, don't they have better things to do than hand out community service for a few shits and fucks? I mean, come on. It hasn't really been an issue before. I don't know why it's such an issue now. When it happens on the radios, on the broadcast, it's bleeped out. You know, we all know kind of what they're saying, but it's bleeped out. If you want the more explicit version, you can watch the team radio. I don't frankly actually watch a whole lot of like the meetings before the race and stuff like that, the conferences that they have with the media and whatnot. So I don't know how much they clean that up, but these guys are under a lot of pressure, especially during the race. So they're going to get that out in what way they can. I don't really blame them for it. And like I said, it's never really been an issue before. So I don't know why they're, approaching this now and handing out reprimands and, in some way, some kind of penalty, not like a points penalty, but stuff like community service. And of course, Max Verstappen, he swears all the time. He's fairly foul-mouthed. It's actually kind of endearing in a backwards sort of way. He is not taking kindly to this, and the fact that he knows he's going to get in trouble for it. And he's decided to be pretty spiteful this weekend with this coming down to the point where he is given Kimi Räikkönen style answers in the interviews and holding his own press conferences pretty much outside.
He went out the room and did his own presser, and everybody just followed him.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he's pretty much given the middle finger to the FIA, being like, fine, you want to do this like this? We'll do it my way. And I think it's actually really funny. I think it's kind of earned him some appreciation this weekend.
I agree, and I'm just going to refer to this as swear jar gate because I really don't know what else to call it. But congratulations, Mohammed Ben Sulayem and the FIA. You managed to make Max Verstappen universally likable, if only for a short time. And I give full props to Max for doing what he did. This thing is stupid. This is the dumbest thing in the middle of a season where you have so much going for you that you're going to start talking about this because apparently you want drivers to be role models. I don't want my drivers to be role models. I want them to be gladiators. Gladiators say shit and gladiators say fuck. So from me to you, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, fuck off. That's number one. Number two, the entirety of this rear wing discussion since Baku has been, one, hilarious, and two, it's fueled by certain people on Sky, and I'm going to get on Sky again because I can't believe that they did this, where they were asking everybody they could find on Friday, anybody who would just happen to be around the camera, what did you think of the McLaren rear wing? It's not a magic rear wing. It didn't, teleport somebody 5 seconds in front of somebody else. It had innovation that was a gray area of the rules that actually fully complies with the current set of regulations that's out there. And the rules don't say what you can't, the rules say what you cannot do. They don't say what you can do. And innovation is part of this sport. And if you want to just kill it, fine. They're going to take it off the car. You're not going to see it again. I don't think it's going to matter. The only place they would have possibly had it would be Vegas. But this is the biggest pile of nothing that I've ever seen made a big deal about. Wow, maddening. And number three, I sure hope all of the Danny Rick fans, and I know there's a lot of them, who did nothing but rake Zach Brown over the coals when McLaren actually tried to respectfully part ways with him when they made that decision. And they paid him a lot of money, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Should turn all that attention to what Red Bull did, because this is doing him dirty. And the worst part of it is they're doing it to him before Coda, where that dude just loves to go. And I hope that somehow Daniel Ricciardo was in the paddock and deserves to be there, because that just sucks.
Yeah, I didn't even consider that if he is done after this race, that he's not going to be racing at Coda, because he really likes it there. He puts on, we've seen it, a great show at Coda. He really leans into the cowboy aesthetic with the mustache and the hat, the boots, and I love it. It's fantastic. We've brought it up before on here that when you and I went and saw this in 2021, you got to drive Dale Earnhardt's car around the track, and it was
right.
like the coolest shit. So yeah, for that to be like the first race that he would miss out on would, I think it'd be a disservice to the fans.
Yeah, agree. Totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of people who are going to go to that race to watch what he does and to go see, the next iteration of Horsey McHorseface or whatever it's going to be, And if he's going walking down the farm road, in a cowboy suit, that's part of the fun, and he gets American culture better than anybody else. When you do a big gathering like that, you're going there to have fun. Yes, there's business, and there's a business end of Formula One, and there's a serious race, and all of that. But you're also the heart of it is to go have fun, and Daniel Ricciardo always understood that. And I just think that it's terrible that you're doing it now. I get why. Again, we talked about there's a constructor battle for that team, and Haas is going to make their life very difficult all the way to the end of the year there. And it's money if they lose P6. But God damn, this sucks.
Agreed. Conceiving that the thing's throbbing after
between the swear jar thing and the rear wing thing, and then you got to deal with Danny Rick, and as much as I remember when I was the guy always saying on this show it was time to move on from Danny Rick. They needed to do what they needed to do when McLaren did it. But they did it respectful. They tried to do everything they could to keep him in the sport, and it sucked that he had to take a year out. And kudos to Danny for doing everything that Red Bull was going to make him do. And I knew what was coming. They were going to make him be the smiley-faced guy that goes out and gives interviews, and he did all of it. And he never said boo about it to anybody, as far as I know. And then he gets his seat back, he breaks his hand, which was just horribly unfortunate when that happened. And then Liam Lawson comes in and just shows that, that dude's got some talent too. But, it's just a crappy situation. It was never, unless Sergio Perez got fired, and apparently Red Bull has decided that that's not going to happen for whatever reason. That was pretty much the nail in the coffin, I think, for Danny Rick's path to anywhere significant. So, it is just kind of what it is. But I've always enjoyed him at Coda. Like I said, I hope somehow he's there. I hope somebody pays for him to be there, because you're going to miss something without his presence there. Just no doubt about it. All right. So we'll move on. Analysis paralysis. This one's actually kind of hard. I had a hard time with this one because I don't know whose strategy really screwed up, but got a candidate here. Cody, I'll let you go first here. What you got?
I agree with you. There really wasn't a whole lot to work with here for analysis paralysis. Most everyone was pretty much on it, and you took the other viable candidate. So I'm just kind of giving this one in a overall general to the VCARB team, because it seems like they've been hanging out right around that 34 point mark for a little while now, and meanwhile Haas just keeps chipping away at that gap to them. Both Hülkenberg and Magnussen have scored points in recent races, and it seems like it doesn't even seem like anymore that it's the fault of Yuki Tsunoda or Daniel Ricciardo that they're not getting any more points. It just seems like the race strategy and the car itself is not giving them really anything to work with. We know that Sonoda can do it. We have joked many times last year and this year that he's that guy that seems to just kind of be right at that like P10, P11 all the time, squeezing out a point here or there when he can. And even he hasn't been able to do it for a while. And I think that they need to, if they really want to secure that P6 position, which, as you said, means money, they really need to pull it together here.
Fair point, that one. I'm going to give it to the only one that I can think of on strategy that might have backfired a little bit, and that was Lewis Hamilton taking the gamble to go on to soft tires. And he was upset on the radio that he thought he probably could have eked out some more life in those soft tires, because I think the early pit stop, now granted it was on lap 17, meant that he basically really didn't have any hard tire life left at the end. Piastri gets by him relatively easily, but beyond Piastri, I don't really know what else it really would have cost him. I think it just kind of was what it was. So it's not my greatest analysis paralysis, but I guess I'll give it to Mercedes here. All right, dark horse of the day. I'll go first here, and mine goes out to Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas. That is an important couple of points. A great qualifying, followed up by a very good race for them. It just kind of, again, unfortunate for K-Mag that, he kind of brushed the wall and we never got the chance to see what he could do. By the way, no more penalty points for K-Mag, so what does he end up doing later on this season? That'll get more intriguing as the closer we get to the end of the year, because he's not going to have to give a flying F about anything at this point. But, I'm going to give it to Nico Hülkenberg. I thought they definitely outpunched where they normally are and made that P6 a lot in the constructors a lot more tight.
Indeed. I'm going to give my dark horse to Franco Colapinto. I think I've already given to him before, but it's really easy when he has so little experience in Formula One and he is, finishing in the points or just outside the points as he did this time. With that lack of experience, he's really shown his good stuff. He was in front of Alex Albon, I believe, before even Albon had to retire the car with the engine problem. So, he's doing everything he can, and I think really surprising a lot of people who were questioning Williams' decision to bring him into the seat.
Yeah, very good candidate there. I am on the Franco Colapinto train. I do think that there will be some very good things for that guy, and we're certainly not going to hear the last of him after this season for sure. Mm-hmm. All right, so we'll move into our driver of the day. How can I not give it to Lando Norris here? Dude was just on a mission this weekend. Other than the couple of moments that did kind of put a scare into me in those last couple laps where I'm just like, dude, just for the love of God, hang on. He managed to get it across the line. That's the bottom line. Does get the 25 points. Does keep his driver's championship hopes alive for now. But we'll move on to the next one, and we'll see where we go from there. But, driver of the day, Lando Norris for me, for sure.
I agree with you that if we're going just purely based on performance, that driver of the day should go to Lando because he did everything he had to do, took the lead, or held the lead from pole, I guess I should say, and managed the race very well. Opened up the gap. Even said at one point that he wasn't, he was given 60% of what the car could do. Team asked him to open up the gap a little more. He went and did it. He was pretty much in control of that race the entire time, and really looked well seasoned and cool as a cucumber this time out, except for those couple scares. However, since you gave him driver of the day, I'm going to go ahead and give driver of the day to Danny Rick. That is what the fans voted for during the race, is to give it to Daniel Ricciardo. And while I don't think his race performance really warrants it, I do think that everyone kind of realizes that the writing is on the wall, that he is probably done in Formula One, and that his presence in the sport will be missed on track. So, I think it's kind of a nice thing that he was voted driver of the day, because it really does show that that he has a lot of fans out there who are going to miss him when he's not, there every weekend.
Yeah, very good. Can't really argue with that one on that for those reasons. And I share a lot of them for sure. I guess it's a good thing that the fans did vote him driver of the day because they're giving him the send off that apparently his own team didn't want to, which is sad. All right, so
We can skip this next part, right?
we can. I mean, we
No,
always
I'm
can
just
can
joking.
skip the predictions
I'm,
results.
I'm
Uh,
just joking.
I am going to give myself a kudos on the qualifying time because I was within just a couple hundredths of that one. But I score 5 points this weekend. I did nail that qualifying time. I did nail the P1 on the podium. I got P3 on the podium. I got the fastest race time because I was quicker than you. The fastest race time, I think we were off by almost a full second, but it's just kind of how that went. And I did get the P6 bonus pick because I had Lewis Hamilton in 6th place. Unfortunately, sir, you didn't score any this weekend. You get completely the duck. We've done it. Now we've each done one. So
Yeah, we've each done one duck.
Yeah, I've done it in Monza. You unfortunately get it here. So you'll be aiming to try to do better next time out, which I'm sure you will because I'm pretty sure you're overall still beating me. But I did manage to take it this weekend. All right.
All right. I was just going to say, I do think it's funny that, we never really had a duck before in our predictions game. And now we had it happen twice in 3 races. Also, we, kind of neglected to mention this on the preview, but our prop bet was supposed to be pretty much a gimme. We haven't really had anything in the way of safety cars in a while here. We did have a virtual safety car at the last race, but it's been a long time since we've seen the safety car. So we ended up making the prop bet. Will we see a full safety car in Singapore? And you figure literally every Singapore race before this, there has been a safety car. So this was a gimme. We both voted yes. Still couldn't get that one. So
survey says not for us this weekend.
Nope.
Yeah, and there are no gimmies. Like the gimme was always you just put Max in the pole, and Max would take pole, so you'd at least get one. Mm-hmm. You might lose 8-1, but at least you had that one. But you can't do that anymore. That is not the way that it's working now. Of course, we all say that and watch the upgrades. Max loves the upgrades, and he goes and gets pole position in the next race. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. So the F1 schedule is really quirky for this thing. So we're actually going to have almost another summer break or a fall break here. We've got 4 weeks until the next episode. We're going to take the break. We're going to enjoy it. We'll kind of refresh. And then we're going to get geared up for the USGP in Austin as the American leg of the championship kicks off with the race at Circuit of the Americas, newly resurfaced front straight and some other parts of it. I think this is the last of the original surfacing is now gone. So the hope is that there's not any more bad bumps or bad things that ruin races anymore. It's still going to be an interesting challenge. I will hopefully try to do my best to take as many pictures and share the experience and bring that to everyone as I do it. So I'm always looking forward to that, but it's a month away. I mean, it feels like it's like going to be next weekend, but no, it's a month away. There's a lot of things that have to get done between now and then, but I'm definitely looking forward to that race. It's my annual trek down to go see the folks in Austin. All right. Any final thoughts before we head on out and start that long break?
Just that I wish that there wasn't a long break. The first long break was, kind of sore enough. It was, really wanting my fix by the time it was over. And now we got to wait all over again. And, it makes it sting all that much more that I'm not even going to be there this year for the next race. But it's still going to be a great one. I know you're going to enjoy it. I will be there again in the future. And it gives me some time to seal in all those final wedding details, we'll say. So, I'm looking forward to it.
greater good things are going to be happening, and I am nothing but proud and happy for you that you are taking the next step in your life there. So if we have to suspend a race weekend for 1 year for you to go do that, I would much rather have you go do that than come with me to a racetrack. But there will be other years, I guarantee you. All right, so we're gonna I guess get started on the break. So this was a lot of fun. We're going to see how this championship goes. If there is news that breaks, obviously, if the Daniel Ricciardo thing comes to fruition, we will bring that to you as we hear it. So keep tuned to our social media for all of that good stuff. And then we'll be back probably with me in the hotel room is the day that I fly down there for the preview. But so that's will be when you'll next hear from us. But for Cody, it's been Andy. This is a lot of fun to do. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at outlapf1 podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.